Welcome into Health Monday, and Jacob Johnson joins us this morning. And Jacob, good morning and Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Merry Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho. I talked to Santa the other day.
Yeah.
And you got a couple more days to make up ground.
Yeah, listen, I go by the plan of, wait till day number like 363 and do some really nice things and try to, get that score up.
Oh, yeah. Hey, we were talking a little bit earlier in the show about the man in Florida with the flamethrower. And, there's a lot of anxiety this time of the year. I wouldn't take it that far, but there is a lot of anxiety this time of the year. And that's what we're talking about this morning, anxiety disorder. What is that?
All right, anxiety disorder. Well, first of all, we all have anxiety, right?
That's why I'm wringing my hand,
Going to sleep last night. Hey, I hope my alarm wakes me up early enough in the morning to be here. I hope I, do a decent job on the Jimmy Dale show. Things like that. Everybody does that. Nothing wrong with that. That's normal. Anxiety disorder, or generalized anxiety disorder, it's this long-term, ongoing worry and anxiety. They're difficult to control, and they have a huge impact on every facet of your life. And people that go through that have what we call generalized anxiety disorder. And it's a lot more common than we realize.
Yeah, and I guess especially it's more magnified this time of the year.
Oh yeah, look, you add any number of stresses, physical, mental, financial, whatever on top of it, and it becomes an issue for real.
So talking about anxiety disorder, what are some of the symptoms of that?
Well, that's
other than flamethrowers.
I mean, I had to print this thing out because they're so varied. When you're talking about something that's physical only, one part of the body, your symptom list can be pretty short and concise. Obviously, you're dealing with mental issues. It varies from person to person because we're all a little different. But persistent worrying about things beyond the scope of how much impact they really would have on your life. An overemphasized worry about certain things. Overthinking plans and always assuming the worst possible outcome. That's a very common issue. Perceiving situations as evil or threatening when they're not. Difficulty with any form of uncertainty. Indecisiveness, and not in the form of I like both, I can't choose what I want for Christmas, but in terms of I'm terrified I'm going to make the wrong decision on something and have catastrophic effects. That sort of thing is very common. Can't let go of a worry, can't relax, can't concentrate, mind going blank. All these things are possible symptoms of generalized anxiety, and they're different in children and teens. They're well beyond the normal anxiety about performance at school or in the game or the play or the performance or whatever. It's a lifestyle of pervasive, terrified of school, terrified of social situations, terrified of public, constantly worried about a family member's safety, just knowing for certain somebody's going to die soon. I just know somebody's about to die. Whether or not Granny's in the hospital, but I just know somebody's about to die. That's very common. A odd fascination with being on time and punctuality. I'm huge on being on time. I love being on time. I've beat that into my children. But a teen who just that pervades their thought process is a sign you got to look for. And then finally, this just assumption and terror of earthquakes and catastrophic events, and weather things that do happen. Just this constant worry and fear of those things, all common to this. Now, okay, here comes the rant. So everybody, buckle up on your sofa there. Here it comes. Here's why we're talking about this today. You remember the old Popeye cartoon?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're old. We know Popeye, right? No, kids don't know Popeye. He used to say, I've had all I can stands, and I can't stands no more. That's where I am with this, and I don't mean from the people that suffer from it. I mean from the things that are causing it for us. In 2019, before we'd ever heard of COVID, the numbers for children and adults were roughly the same. When surveyed in medical surveys, roughly 10 to 12% of people, regardless of age bracket, would say in the last month, I have suffered significantly from some form of anxiety. 10 to 12%. And that held true for years. That's a pretty standard number. In the most recent statistics from the late summer and fall of this year, the number nationally, regardless of age, holds at around 27%. So more than 2.5 increase from what it was 2 years ago. So we've increased 2.5 times, 250%. But more troubling, the numbers actually decrease as you go from old age to young age. Our 70 and 80-year-olds are holding fast at about 10 to 12%, the same place they've always been. And as you get younger, the numbers get bigger. Our young adults, our 18 to 29-year-olds, 41%. Our children hovering around 40%, dealing with pervasive daily anxiety. These are our nation's future, your family's future, your church's future. This is your future, and we got to deal with this.
Why do you think that? Why do you think the numbers are what they are now, especially among our younger generation?
It's a good question, and it's tough to answer. I want to start with I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not a COVID denier. I've seen what it is and what it does, obviously at work all day, every day. So I know. But there are entities in politics, both sides of the aisle. I'm not defending either side. There are entities in the mainstream media. There are entities in business and finance. And there is an entity in the spiritual realm that greatly benefits from a spirit of fear and anxiety and subjugating people to fear. And when we allow that to pervade our society, and we allow those with the biggest platforms to push the biggest fears and worries constantly with negativity all the time, and we live in a world of negativity, the end result is simple and clear for us to behold. And I see it in my personal life. I have family that deals with this. I'm in close family. I have friends that deal with this in church family. I have people, obviously, that come in my store every day. I know these people. And like Popeye said, I've had all I can stand, and I can't stand no more. We got to do something.
And we're talking about good people. We're
talking about very average, everyday, very good, God-fearing people that still deal with this.
So we see the numbers. We see who it's affecting. How do we kind of try to prevent this?
That's a good question. You know, because it's caused by things we can't control. Genetics. You know, if your mom and grandmom and dad and siblings, you know, deal with this, you're more likely to have to deal with this. You know, so you can't prevent that. You're born what you're born. And you also can't control your circumstances that you grow up with, the things that are your past experiences and all those things, and your personality that come from the way you're raised, the way you're born, the things that happen to you. We can't control any of that. And so you can't prevent it in the typical sense. Hey, I prevent high cholesterol by not eating this, that, and the other. I prevent high blood pressure by that. It's not the same with mental issues. So it's harder to prevent, but things we can do. If you start to deal with something like this, one is get help early. It's a lot easier to treat somebody who is starting to deal with anxiety than someone who is almost bedridden with it. Obviously, the earlier we deal with it and just acknowledge it and talk about it, the better we're going to prevent issues. It's going to sound like a crazy one. It's something I wouldn't want to do, but keep a journal. If you start to deal with anxiety issues, starting to keep a journal of what kind of put me over the edge today, what made me feel better when I did this. Those types of things early on can prevent you from having a serious disorder later. And then prioritizing issues in your life. You know, finding things that anchor you to spend your time and energy and thought on that are positive. Your family, your children, your parents, whatever. Those things that help center and anchor you are the things that are going to prevent you from slipping into what we're going to call not just your standard, I have a little anxiety today, versus having a significant disorder. Those things are how we prevent it. And then the same always, the numbers of people that have an unhealthy substance abuse habit and have anxiety, obviously they kind of track. And so staying away from unhealthy substance abuse issues are huge in preventing anxiety.
We're talking this morning about anxiety disorder, and Jacob Johnson from Marble City Pharmacy with us for a few more minutes today. And you know, this is not in our notes or anything, but on a personal thought, this can disrupt families big time. Anxiety, whether it's a child or an adult.
I see it a lot, and I deal with it a lot. And I'll give you an example. I have to be very careful here, obviously, in my professional talk here. I have a gentleman I think very highly of, that I know very well. And I'll give you an example of what this can get to. He has an anxiety disorder, and it leads to, I mentioned one of the symptoms of, you know, taking a specific fear and taking it way out of proportion. His rabies from bat bites.
Oh, wow.
You don't hear that every day, right?
No.
It's not an everyday occurrence.
No.
Terrified.
Goodness.
And just every time I leave the house, hey, I think I might have seen a bat today. Do you think that maybe somehow, some way, that bat somehow transmitted rabies to me?
Goodness.
Now, this is a very intelligent human, by the way, an extremely intelligent human. And it pervades his every thought. And he goes through times that are better and worse, obviously. But that's just an example of someone I know that deals with this. And it's that, or it's something else, or pick whatever. But that's just an example of how pervasive and invasive this disease can be in your life, that instead of, hey, how are my children doing today? How are my parents doing today? Oh, look, work's going good. Or it's, hey, I think I saw a bat.
Yeah.
It's the most random thing. And it's very serious. Happens a lot, though. It's very common.
As a pharmacist, as a registered pharmacist, how do we go about treating this anxiety disorder? What do you do?
Well, you kind of hit it from 3 angles, and you have to hit it from all 3 angles. You really do. The first one is, it's a term nobody likes because it sounds terrible when you say it as psychotherapy. That sounds terrible, right? Nobody likes the term psychotherapy. What does that mean? That's going to talk to a therapist. Talking it out, they use something called cognitive behavioral therapy or techniques to help you, recognize when something is oncoming, and when you feel this, do this, and it kind of reroutes your brain and avoids the worst of it. So seeing a therapist is key. Look, I'm a pharmacist. I love medicines and I believe in medicines, but in this case, seeing a therapist is key. Second is the medicines. That's my world, right? The first line treatment is antidepressant medicines. Antidepressant medicines are great for helping control anxiety. And then there are some anxiety-specific medicines for those moments when, the anxiety, despite my daily antidepressant medicine, kind of pushes over the top. So I have to have some, anxiety-type medicine now. They're technically called benzodiazepines, but they're nerve medicines. And so those are common. And we use those. And then the third leg of the stool that's every bit as important is basically what we're going to call lifestyle and home issues. It's, you got to get out in the sun. You got to be physically active. You got to make sleep a priority. You've got to control the things you control. You've got to learn to use relaxation techniques. You've got to eat right. You've got to, again, avoid harmful substances, nicotine, alcohol, drugs, all those things, even caffeine. You've got to watch your intake of all these things. And when you put the 3 legs of the stool together, is this a disease we can deal with? Sure it is. Is it hard to deal with? Yes. It's not take a pill and I'm magically controlled now. It doesn't go away like that. That's not how this works. Mental issues don't do that. But you've got to deal with all 3 legs of the stool to get that stool to stand. And when you do, it's something you can deal with, and we've got to, because 40% of our young people, the future of this nation and our families and our churches, are dealing with this right now. And it's harder to treat later. We need to address and deal with this now, and at all 3 legs of this stool now, and watch for signs of this in loved ones now, and deal with it now, because it's extremely important. You can tell the seriousness of my voice this morning. I can't emphasize this enough. We got to deal with this. We can't wait 20 years from now when these are the leaders of our families and nations and churches to, oh, we got a mental health problem. What are we going to do? We didn't see it coming. Yeah, we did. We got to deal with it now.
How can we find out more?
That's a good question. It's not easy because, people like to talk about these things.
Yeah.
People don't like to talk
Like
about
we're
these
doing
things
this
at all.
morning.
Exactly. It's uncomfortable, isn't it? You're a little uncomfortable at home? Hey, me too. I'm much more uncomfortable than you are right now, I can assure you. We got to talk about them. How do we deal with them? How do we get started talking about them? You talk to your doctor. You talk to your children. You talk to their pediatrician. You monitor them. You watch them. They're your children. You love them. Pay attention to them. Know what's going on. If something changes, just deal with it now while it's easy. Watch your parents. Watch your elderly aged ones. Watch them. How are they doing? Are they slipping into depression or anxiety? Watch them. Deal with them early. Talk to doctors. Your doctor can help you find a therapist. Look, I deal with this every day. Come talk to me. I'll talk about it all day long because I see it and I know it. Come talk to me. Come find somebody.
Yep. And holiday season, of course, is
Makes it worse every year.
a high time of the year for that to take place. And certainly we want to encourage all of you this morning as we encourage ourselves. And on a better note, not talking about anxiety.
Yeah, let's move on.
We're talking about our gift department at Marble City Pharmacy, and man, we're ready to go, right?
Let me tell you something. I'll save you some Christmas anxiety. You don't have to drive up into the craziness all the way up 280 to shop for Christmas. Why don't you come to Marble City Pharmacy? Teresa's done a fabulous job. It looks great. I had somebody say when I was leaving work I guess it was Friday night when I was leaving work, a lady was shopping up front as I was walking out and said, hey, you have saved me so many trips. I've done all my Christmas shopping for everybody on my list here this year. So come find us, come see us. We got stuff for you.
All right, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Jacob Johnson from Marble City Pharmacy, our guest this morning on Health Monday. More to do.